Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Yeri from Astrology Healing Arts, and today I wanted to go over the influences for the month of April 2025 and explain how, yes, we are in this brand new season cycle with the Sun in Aries, now Neptune having just entered the sign of Aries, and this is really big and exciting news, and it certainly does have a powerful influence in our lives. But we are not done with the energy and influence of Pisces. Pisces is playing a very huge role in our lives this month, and the reason why is because we have 3 planets in conjunction with the North Node in Pisces. So right off the bat, we start the month of April. You can see that Venus is closest to the North Node, but throughout we will have Venus and Saturn both very close to the North Node. The first half of the month, we have Mercury very close to the North Node and this cluster as well. But then once it's direct and it moves out of Pisces into Aries, the Mercury effect lifts, and now we're left with Venus and Saturn. And out of the 3 planets, the one that carries the most weight is Saturn. And the other 2 planets, personal planets of Mercury and Venus, would more signal that the weight would relate to these different things like communication would be Mercury, and then Venus, our relationships. And because these 2 planets are still retrograde, and even once they are direct, we will be experiencing them direct, but in the post-shadow influence, there will be continuous review throughout this month. So let's go planet by planet and talk about what this means. But first, explaining the North Node as a point that draws energy in, emphasizing the nature of the planet that it happens to be next to. And in this case, it's this whole stellium, this cluster of planets. Now, when it comes to the planets, let's actually start with our beloved Mercury, planet of communication, nerve impulses, travel, electronics, and so on. Mercury being retrograde in the sign of Pisces has been a very sort of confusing influence for a lot of people, inspiring for others, and so close to Neptune has been heightening a lot of experiences in the astral or the dream time, or situations that are very nebulous and foggy and unclear, or even purposefully deceptive. And so with Mercury conjunct the North Node, we have this sort of increase of mental energy, but it's not just any type of mental energy. It's really in review about a lot of things from the past and a lot of connections from the past. And it's bringing up a lot of things right now where for the next few weeks it's like tying up loose ends with different people or with contracts and agreements, and just, suddenly remembering things or bringing closure to things that were started some time ago, and now they must find their, the completion. And that's what the North Node is bringing in. And it can also increase the amount of mental stimulation and psychic energy that people are picking up in general. So for example, people that are not usually psychic might be having a lot more psychic experiences, and then people who are already psychic, or who are especially gifted in that way, might notice that their abilities are enhanced times 10 or even times 100 with all of these different influences combined in Pisces, with still the Neptune being a factor in this influence. So it's been a lot of mental energy, psychic energy. So we have telepathic experiences, we have different sorts of psychic experiences all being heightened. It heightens the intuition for some people, but again, for some people it would be more like, especially for those who are into escapism, it can create even more fog and sort of like delusional thinking. And so this really depends on each person. Every situation is unique. And if you want to understand how this is influencing you personally, you can always go to your natal chart and look what house is Mercury transiting and what planets are being transited, if any. And so when we combine this influence with Venus and Saturn and the North Node, we have a very interesting combination. Again, I want to break it down into pieces first and then, weave it all together to explain the big picture. So then we have Venus retrograde in Pisces, conjunct the North Node, and what she signifies is how we give and receive love and affection and our appreciation of beauty in general. And Venus is, all the good things in life, whether it's money or things that we really value. And in Pisces, her energy is very heightened and elevated and idealized, and it has a higher sort of expression of compassion and even sacrifice, like sacrifice for the one you love kind of thing. And there's a sort of spiritual aspiration that's present with Venus in Pisces. And also with the retrograde Venus in Pisces, there would be a lot of wanting to resolve and heal relationships or relationship issues from the past. And appropriately, Venus actually goes direct on the 12th, on the same day that we're having a full moon in the sign of Libra, which is ruled by Venus, which further heightens the theme of relationship balance and reorientation. So there's a lot of review happening around that and has been happening throughout March, and it will continue throughout the month of April because of being so close to the North Node. Even after Venus goes direct in the middle of the month, again, we still have the post shadow and the North Node connection signaling that we need to come to terms with something and make a choice about something in our hearts, in our relationships. And it's not so much just because it's with the North Node, but it's because it's in the late degrees of Pisces, which is the final sign. So it's, you could say karmic or, fated, or it's something that's been accumulated over a long period of time, like how we've been feeling about someone or experiencing this connection over a long period of time. And it really signals that we want to resolve something and release any burdens associated with this relationship from our hearts. And now I'm going to move on to Saturn. Saturn, again, carries a very serious tone about it, and it's known as the cosmic taskmaster. So with Saturn and the North Node together, what's being indicated is that we have some serious work to do. And again, with the presence of Venus throughout the month and Saturn and the North Node, this signals that whatever that work is, whether it has to do with our health, our relationships, our career, or any number of other subjects, that it does involve taking others into consideration and considering the effect that our actions have on others and vice versa. And it's also about bringing some kind of cycle to a close, because this is really the planet that signals we are making closure with an old chapter and cycle in our lives and preparing to enter a brand new one. Yes, Neptune has a big role to play in describing this situation for us, but Saturn, as one of the original 7 major planets, luminaries, and also one that relates to world events, is signaling that there's something that we need to finalize, come to terms with, make right with in our lives, and that being in Pisces, this is very much about aligning ourselves with some sort of higher principle or truth, whether that is, for some people that will be religious, but for other people it will be more like a quiet inner space. And religion and spirituality are not synonymous necessarily. They can coexist, but the idea is that a sense of commitment to any sort of higher principle could become center point for many people right now. And if it's not something that's spiritual, then it has something to do with the completion of a cycle or commitment to something or someone. And in many cases, this will be someone who is an elevated position of authority, or even someone who is an elder, because Saturn rules elders, and there might be significant closure and or endings with significant elders in our life around this time as well. In some cases, that would mean actual, crossing over to the other side. And in other cases, it would mean a settling of affairs in some way, or where the elder is passing the torch down to the younger one or to the apprentice. But in any case, this is a serious matter, and it requires real accountability and responsibility. And if you think back to about every 11 to 12 years, Saturn does join with the North Node, but in a different sign. And so you can think back to what was imminent in your life then. Some kind of decision had to be made where you really had to step up and become more responsible in some way. So we look at the Pisces archetype, which is really about completion and liberation, and then it's ultimately a sense of devotion to others based on our experiences and accumulated wisdom. I want to say this can basically go one of two ways. I mean, there are myriad expressions and possibilities, but one of two ways. We live in a dualistic sort of world. So the negative possibility is that if one shirks and turns away from the responsibility and instead operates from the lower expression of Pisces, which is escapism, and denial of reality in some way, trying to walk the primrose path and just, let someone else take care of it, and whatever will be kind of attitude, then this could result in some sort of deleterious outcome. We can't always just turn away from our responsibilities and expect that it's going to work out great. And that goes without saying for a lot of you wonderful people listening. So, that's obviously going to be not so great or fun to experience if a person's like, no, I can't do it. I won't do it. I just want to sit here with a 6-pack watching the game, and I figure, the bills will pay themselves off somehow. And yeah, whatever. That's not going to fly right now. Just saying. So, the positive is that we're like, okay, I see what I have to do. It's very clear that in order to get the desired results, I need to take steps and be methodical and patient with the process. I can't skip steps. I have to be responsible. I have to show up. I have to, use my own ability, that kind of thing. I have to not just expect someone else to pick up the pieces and do it for me. Whatever it is, you fill in the blanks. We all have a different situation. Again, you can check the house that it's going through to get more of an idea of the where and the how. But in some way, we need to step up and do our part, because this is like a chance for all of us to be done with something that really needs to find its completion in our lives, because we cannot take that with us. We can't take something that's either broken or unfinished, unresolved, into the new life, the new paradigm, however you want to look at this, going forward. We can't move forward. We can't have genuine progress unless we finish what we've started. And we also have to clear some things out. We have to spend some time, whether it's decluttering or, doing a bunch of paperwork that's really boring but necessary. For some people that could be legal work that they're just at the tail end of, but it has felt like forever and it's been just a drag and they want to give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. This is key. Stay focused. We have to stay very focused this month. I know this doesn't sound peachy and rosy and flowery and springtimey, but it doesn't mean that we can't whistle while we work and enjoy life. But there will be things coming up for each of us in different ways that require us to get down and serious and do some work, use some elbow grease, and it might feel like there's more to do and less energy to do it. But surely, if we actually do the work, we will look back and say that we are glad that we did. Okay, so now for the first half of the month, when we have Mercury, Venus, Saturn, North Node, all together in Pisces, what does this mean? Okay, so remember how Mercury is heightening a lot of mental faculties, energy, psychic experiences, and so on. The Venus is a lot of emotional and relational review. Saturn is work and karmic completions. And when you put it all together, it really does narrow down to how we've been fulfilling our life purpose and how this relates to all the key people in our lives. In other words, how are we communicating with and about other key people in our lives as they relate to our life purpose and how we in turn relate to their life purpose? So everybody is playing a role in everybody's life and everybody's dharma, so to speak, to bring about certain results. And this is one of those moments where that whole Piscean concept of unity and being one, somehow we're all connected. He can't really see that every day, and it sure doesn't feel like that most of the time. But this is one of those months where we are really going to notice how we are all connected in the ethers, in the things that we all basically experience together, the big mystery that we all experience that we don't really know why we're here and what we're doing and how we're on this planet. None of us have all the answers. There are some things that truly are universal to the human experience. Now, I want to take this a little further, go a little deeper with the idea that Saturn is the planet of karma and punishment and divine retribution and all of those types of things that seem to be just in a cosmic sense. And I'd like to challenge that belief by stating that it is possible we have given our power away to a force that we do not even entirely understand, if at all. And in so doing, we've diminished our own ability to shape our lives because we've projected it onto this outside force. Astrology is a double-edged sword. We give a lot of power away in general, or the danger exists, I should say, that we are giving away our power to these influences that we don't entirely understand. But to me, astrology is just a tool. It's like, okay, it's part of nature. I'm going to use it for something practical. So essentially what I'm suggesting is that some of us are taking a look at where we've given power away to some external authority, whether that's, in a worldly sense or a spiritual sense, as the pipeline to spirit, the pipeline to enlightenment in some way. And we're taking it back and we're claiming that and taking responsibility for our own development. What we are doing essentially with the combined influence of Mercury, Venus, Saturn, and the North Node in Pisces is a lot of healing and releasing and completion with regard to, again, the important people in our lives, but not just the people in our lives. It's also how we have related Venus to ourselves and our own sense of worth and our own sense of, again, like purpose in this life beyond the purpose that, we were told that we should have in high school or in church, or well-meaning parents, that wanted us to be the violinist or whatever, but instead we chose this other path of being in sports. It's like, okay, we got to this point and now we might suddenly be questioning, was it worth it? Am I having fun yet? Is there more than this? Can it get better? And yes, it's possible that we may graduate to a higher level of experience. But first, we have to come to terms with something that isn't right, that needs correction, that needs improvement, that needs an upgrade, that needs healing, that needs reconciliation, so on. You get the idea with the 2 retrograde planets the first half of the month. The second half of the month, the pressure begins to lift, and now it's more clear how we can move forward with less obstacles and mix-ups and all of that kind of thing. And it's still going to be some work, to get to the other side of whatever the struggle or the task may be. But it'll have more of a sense of coming together, right? Because we have already taken the steps in a certain direction for positive change. And so now we just have to stay dedicated to whatever that process is. You have planets in either Virgo or Pisces. You might be experiencing this month's energy in a very pronounced way. But even if you don't, everybody is going to be experiencing this on some level. And but those of you who do have the Pisces and the Virgo especially marked in your charts, you're going through a huge sort of overhaul. You're shedding a lot of baggage. You're ending a toxic cycle, pattern, or relationship, whether it's your own toxic patterns or whether for some of you, it's a toxic partner or a narcissist, and you're finally ready to break free. But whatever it is, it's coming up. It's time to look in the mirror at who you are and what you are doing in your life and the choices that are before you that will either produce positive and happy outcomes for you or that will lead to further suffering. It sounds harsh, but that's pretty much the law of cause and effect. And it's not based on whether or not you're a good or a bad person, or even if you're doing good or bad things. In some cases, it's just a matter of how much can you tolerate before you realize, hey, this relationship is really not serving me well at all. This is not bringing out the positive aspects of my character. And it certainly isn't making me feel good, and I'm not feeling met. So that's just an example of how some people might be processing this whole thing. And then for other people, it's just looking at bad habits that they have, addictions, because Pisces is one of those signs that has been known to fall prey to certain types of addictions, not always substance. And of course, any person of any zodiac sign can fall prey to addictions. But what we are looking at collectively, again, no matter what sign a person is, are patterns and addictions that prevent us from becoming successful and liberated overall. We cannot find any liberation in our minds or in our lives when we are chained to a habit that is harmful to us. We are enslaved by that habit or that thing, that object, that relationship, whatever it is. And for some people, it's negative self-talk. It's a pattern, it's a habit. Some people are addicted to drama and bad news and doom scrolling. And these types of things rob the soul of the ultimate potential that we each have inside of us to actualize our greatness. So, in summary, the combination of Mercury right off the bat, Venus, North Node, Saturn all together, I like to think of are singing like a chorus from on high, a chorus of purpose and reminding us of who we are and what we are really doing here, and reminding us not to sweat the small stuff and to really focus on what is lasting and meaningful and what will be carried on as a beautiful legacy of some kind. There could be a lot of life review happening right now with accompanied feelings of nostalgia or regret. By simply accepting the reality of our painful existence, there is a liberation in that. There is a freedom because we're not kidding ourselves anymore. We've accepted it, and we don't have to love it, but by just accepting that there are tests and there are challenges and there are a lot of injustices, but there is more than this for you, for me, for us. You're not here just to get swept away by the chaos. You're not here to be just another casualty. You're here with a very defined purpose. You can either step into it and fulfill that purpose, or you can run away. That is your God-given choice. But you will have consequences, not because you're being punished, but because you're choosing to basically act in counterintuitive ways to what's natural, to what you really do want deep down inside. You want, what any of us truly want is to be happy and at peace and to get along. We don't want conflicts, right? So this is an opportunity to experience what our role is in creating that kind of experience in our lives and collectively, because each of us does have some kind of small contribution to make. And I'm saying all of this again because Venus is about relationships. In Pisces, it's about our relationship to the collective. It's not only about romance and sex. I mean, it can include that. Certainly for a lot of people right now, that would be the area under review and release and so on. But in Pisces, it's about our love for the creator or for the divine spark in another or in all of nature, what connects all of us. It's something that extends beyond the mundane. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed this talk today. I really feel that even though this Saturn and North Node connections seem to be heavy or ominous or intense, I don't really see it as a negative at all. I see it as a wonderful opportunity to have some closure in our lives that bring relief, mental relief, emotional relief. Like, what kind of baggage have you been carrying around for so long that you forgot what it felt like to be without that baggage? So when you strip that away, what are you left with? Who are you left with? After we've stripped away all of our excuses and all of our trauma and all of the stuff that we carry around, who is there? Who is left? And that's what we need to get in touch with this month of April. And actually, I think that the presence of Venus softens the blows, so to speak. It could be a lot more difficult. Instead, we also have a helpful trine coming from Mars, still in Cancer. And even though Mars does not particularly enjoy being in Cancer, we have help from the trine being formed between Mars and this cluster in Pisces. So that's something we can be grateful for, that is working in our favor to help us stay motivated, even though it might not be easy. So that wraps up today's talk on the major influences of April 2025. I do have several openings throughout April, but in May, I am going to be quite booked with other projects. So if you want to get a reading in before then, you can go to my website, astrologyhealingarts.com. This was Yeri. Thanks for listening, and have a fantastic month of April.